Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Friday, the 25th of September, 2020. I am your host, the amazing Super Chris. I hope you're doing great. Ready for the weekend. I am ready for the weekend. I'm always ready for the weekend. Weekend never sneaks up on this man. Never. I've got my co-hosts, Andy Hall from the Laughing in Disbelief blog over at Pathos, and The Rage from the Nokasuchi from the Rage channel here on YouTube. They're going to join me as we're going to talk about filling the Supreme Court seat with a religious zealot right after this. Do you love Jesus? Do you love America? Do you love yelling at strangers? If you answered yes, then there is a new version of the good book for you. The All Caps Bible. The All Caps Bible has everything from the sacred text you would expect. God creates the world in 6 days. Noah saves bunnies from the great flood. Jesus preaches God's message in the Sermon on the Mount. However, the All Caps Bible levels up the message by putting everything in all caps. That's right, you don't have to go to church to hear God's message yelled at you. This Bible will yell at you while you're reading it. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Christians love the All Caps Bible. Here are a few reviews. Mason in Dallas, Texas says, I don't feel guilty anymore yelling at the Starbucks barista. Karen in Oklahoma says, Jesus' message of forgiveness is better when you yell it. And Tommy in South Bend says, who knew the little drummer boy was such a jerk? Buy the All Caps Bible right now and get a loudspeaker so you too can spread the good news. You get everything for a low, low cost of $89.99. All right, there we go. I love that commercial. That's fun. We need to re-record it where it's more better and stuff. I think I did something wrong. Anyway, I love that commercial. That's a fun one. Good morning, Andy and The Rage. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, Nokasuchi. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm awake. I'm going to be leaving soon. I've got a doctor's appointment for the little ones, so always a lot of fun.
That's wonderful. I actually have all the buttons prepared, so whenever you bail, me and Andy got it.
Awesome.
So, yeah. Awesome. Hey, Andy.
Hey, what?
Are you ready for the weekend?
What am I doing over the weekend? That's a very good question. I have a planner, and it has plans. But, I'm only really aware of what I'm here doing right now, in the moment, in the pocket. Nothing else exists for me right now.
Nothing else except for this. You
have me, my whole forebrain, and at least parts of my lizard brain too. That's what you have.
Yeah. Well, typically my monkey brain makes me do what I do. Anyway, good morning to you, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining me. Good morning to everybody in the chat. KCA Anthony is here. The Damn Nation. Slade Chimera. Derek Cruz. Good morning, Derek. Nice to have you with us. Inez Ramos. Good morning. Airward Chiriak. And Trina DeLuca was here, but she had to leave. So, she's gone. I'm not sure where. She's going to do the thing. So I hope Trina has a great weekend and all that good stuff. Hi, Trina. Thank you to everybody on Facebook and the people who watch on the Daily Atheist Morning Show, who listen on the podcast. Good morning to everybody. Intro's over. Hello. Guys, what do you think about what's going on in the world with the lady at the place? You heard about the lady, right?
Are we talking about Amy? Is it Coney or Coney?
I'm going to say Coney. It looks like Coney. Doesn't it look like Coney?
Coney Barrett, who is the
Supreme Is it Barrett or Beret?
Oh, see,
I just call her handmaiden.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, handmaiden.
Just waiting for all
I haven't
the
seen the show
her in the handmaiden's outfit there.
But she's a very fundamental religious zealot. I believe she is a Catholic. I could be wrong about that, but she is pretty much come out and stated, not in these exact words, but have implied that she would be against the separation of church and state. She thinks that judges should rule based upon their religious beliefs.
Yeah. I have an article here from the Friendly Atheist about Ms. Barrett and about the cult group that she's part of, which is what is it? It's the name of her cult is Praise People or something crazy like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Do you mind if I read part of the article?
Please.
Yeah, please do. And I yeah, she is Catholic. So I thought she was Catholic, but
She's Catholic with 7 kids.
yeah.
Really?
Yes, there are reasons why Trump would, and I'm reading from a 2018. The good thing about Hemant, as we all know, is that he follows these threads of stories for years, and so you can always go back to this information well that he has on the Friendly Atheist. There are reasons why she would make sense for his base. Barrett is a woman who would almost certainly overturn Roe v. Wade. She's a graduate of a non-Ivy League law school, a resident of non-coastal Indiana, with a vulnerable Democratic senator who may have been pressured into voting for her, a former clerk for Justice Antonin Scalia, someone who said Notre Dame should cover contraception for students, and is already pre-approved by the Federalist Society and a justice who would side with conservatives for decades to come. So let's talk about her group, the People of Praise. That's the name of the group, the People of Praise. Quote, some of the members' practices would surprise many faithful Catholics. Members of the group swear a lifelong oath of loyalty called a covenant to one another and are assigned and are accountable to a personal advisor called a, quote, head, unquote, for men and a, quote, handmaid, unquote, for women. The group teaches that husbands are the heads of their wives and should take authority over the family. And of course, they also believe in prophecy, speaking in tongues, and divine healings. So that's like a small snippet of the People of Praise and Ms. Amy Conant Barrett. You know what? And before dumping on her and her wacky belief system, I will say that she did adopt some kids from Haiti. I believe 2 children. And so there's a lot of people who talk the talk, but at least in part, she walks the walk in terms of, taking care of people. So,
I read a little bit about her, and again, I think probably Nokasuchi's more versed with her than I am, but I read just a tiny bit about her. Of course, all those things you say are true, but one of the things that I'd read about her was that she was kind of a little bit of a constitutional literalist.
Yeah.
She tries to interpret it, and if she really is that way, that's not so bad. Obviously she's going to disagree with us on the abortion things and all those other things, but I'm hoping there may actually be a true patriot behind that.
No, there's not. She going
to sell us out.
When a conservative says a judge is constitutionalist, that means that she's a constitutionalist that interprets the Constitution conservatively. Well, yeah, she's an extremist to the extreme, and so there is no real patriot behind there because she doesn't believe in from what I get, this is my opinion. She doesn't believe in the ideals of America. She believes in the ideals of her religious faith, and she wants to see America go there. So I don't think that we could expect that. I think that it's a very awkward play for Trump to put a woman such as this in the role, because I think he's really putting his line in the sand that they are going after Roe v. Wade. We've all know it, but this is like just a blatant, we're coming after that,
Yeah. So. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No doubt. Will she give him anything she wants to get rid of Roe v. Wade?
Yeah. I just want to point out that when I hear constitutional literalist, I think of constitutional fundamentalist.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it exactly. Yeah.
And they are not for any kind of, they are very, very strict, and they are fundamental in their views. And there's no surprising that religious fundamentalists happen to be constitutional fundamentalists too. The Venn diagram is pretty tight on that.
Well, and conservatives have propped up Scalia as this saint figure. And if you were a clerk for Scalia or you had any associations with Scalia, well, then that automatically propels you to the top of a list. But Scalia was one of the most extreme judges we've ever had in the history of our country. And there's a reason why the Conservative Party is propping him up, because they want more extreme judges, not the moderates. Like Trump could have played an actual presidential hand, start offering up a moderate, that's still going to lean right, but it's still going to appease the left. That's not in Trump. He's not going to do that.
No. Well, see, and that's something I've been complaining about, is that's what the left do. The left, when they're going to nominate somebody, they're going to somebody who's a little lefty, but who kind of leans right so they can mitigate the people on the right, and they'll agree with them and they'll go ahead and put them in. But on the right, they put somebody in completely against everything the left has. The left tries to meet in the middle, the right goes all the way to the right. The left tries to meet in the middle, the right goes all the way to the right.
The right, they want to push the ball down the field. The left, or at least Democrats, mainstream Democrats, just shrug their shoulders and say, well, we can, they do this middle ground fallacy where they go, well, if we're only half Nazi, that's okay.
I think the right sees the writing on the wall. Like there is civil unrest. There are big left movements going on, progressive movements. We are attacking the corporations. We're attacking the fossil fuel industry. We're attacking big pharma. I think that they see the writing on the wall, so they're just going balls out right now, trying to get as much as they can before the whole party comes coming down.
Political land grab. That's what
Yeah. I just I don't know. It's one of those things, and now we all know. I certainly. The longer we go, the more I become pessimistic about the outcome of this election. Now, don't get me wrong. Even if I say it's just completely corrupt, there's no way voting is going to matter, still vote, right? I'm still going to vote. I still got to vote. We got to vote.
Voting matters if we turn out. It's going to,
of course. It always matters. That's great. It matters. That's wonderful. We just need to... not lose the message.
Yeah, and I think when you say like voting doesn't matter, you're worried about them actually attacking the ballot box, and that's why I'm saying if this isn't a special election, we need to turn out and we can kind of defeat that with numbers.
Yeah. Just because sometimes I'm going, it doesn't matter. Trump's going to corrupt it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean don't go vote. You still got to go vote. Okay, that said, put that over there. Chris said go vote no matter what. Go vote. Go vote. Go vote. But it doesn't matter because Trump's going to corrupt the election as much as he can. Then when he does lose, no matter what, he's going to contest it. And it's going to go where? To the Supreme Court. And what's going to happen? The Supreme Court is going to give him presidency.
Well,
that's
maybe
kind of where we're at now. Is
maybe
that where we're at now? Have you guys seen the Democrats fighting? Are they fighting for this? Have they done anything to stop this yet?
They're bending over already. Pelosi, Tim Kaine, they're bending over.
The problem with the Democrats is that they just hope, just like they hoped last time, that it's all going to be resolved in the election. So why would they have to fight now if they're going to win in November? And this is the same fallacy that they had in 2016.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed.
Nothing's guaranteed. It's politics.
Yeah, it's just it's very disheartening. But again, despite that message, I've got to keep saying, go vote. Doesn't matter. Go vote. Go vote. Because, right? I mean, and of course, Andy was talking about having it to where he's going to vote differently, but only because X, Y, and Z, right? Great.
Well, whatever. The thing is, once again, it's like people who are in safe zones. I'm in a let's say a green zone, in terms of safety. In terms of, I was looking at the polls in Massachusetts. Polls say that Biden has a 35 to 40 point lead over Trump. There is, statistically speaking, an impossibility of Trump winning Massachusetts. I think the last time Massachusetts went for a Republican was Reagan. That being said, voting green actually does push the conversation more to the left, because I want to push the conversation more to the left than to. And I'm going to say it again because I don't think you really appreciated my half Nazi DNC policy statement there.
I had actual comeback to it, but we got lost in the thing. All right, so there's this meme going around where there's this one group over here that goes, we need to kill all black people and all brown people and all poor people. And over here on the left, you've got people going, some of the people going, hey, we can't be killing people. And then you've got these people going, hey, can't we meet in the middle and just kill like some people?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it feels.
Well, that's the middle ground fallacy right there. Is just saying that meeting people in the middle is a good idea. And though that's a good strategy at times, it is something that you should not be assuming is going to hold in every single situation.
Well, yeah, I just had this. We were talking about this in the side chat on Atheist Pastors channel, and I was like, I live in Michigan, so I have no choice. I've got to vote for Biden. I got to
Yeah.
swallow vomit as I do it. But if you don't live in Michigan, yeah, I agree with Andy. I think that those votes for the farther left party, I don't agree with everything that the Green Party stands for, but it's not necessarily about the Green Party so much about we have a two-party system here and we need to break that up. And I think so. I do think if you are in a solid blue state, and you're a progressive, cast that rebellious vote. Let the party know that we're coming for him. Like we're focused on Trump right now, but once Trump is gone, we're cleaning house.
I've been trying to figure out whether or not this group that she belongs to, People of Praise, are part of a compound. Now, I don't think there's an official compound where people in the group, People of Praise, hang out in, but I'm going to read you a bit from the New York Times article about the group. They are I'm going to try to not butcher this word. Communitarian. That's it. So it definitely has a communitarian vibe to it. People of Praise. And I'm going to quote from the New York Times article, to fulfill the group's communitarian vision, unmarried members are sometimes placed to live in homes with married couples and their children, and members often look to buy or rent homes near other members. So they're not living in a compound, but they're kind of trying to make, a very close-knit community.
Mm-hmm.
Very close-knit community.
This kind of plays into what you've been saying about electing people, religious nutbags, pardon the expression, to any form of, it's like as an atheist, you're hurting yourself, shooting yourself in the foot. Here's foot, bang. Every time you do anything that fosters allowing a religious person into either political office or somewhere like a judge or something like that, we're just hurting ourselves.
Well, I've never really understood that about right-leaning atheists here in this country, and it's got to be a conundrum for them, to have a political philosophy that's infested by the religious community you might fight against. But yeah, I've always wondered, as a right-leaning atheist, if I were that, I don't think that I could vote with the party that is pushing to go towards theocracy as opposed to secular freedoms. So yeah, I've never really understood that. I understand that it must be terrible to have a political philosophy that's infested by an enemy. So yeah, I it's something that I'm trying to come to terms with because I'm meeting more and more right-leaning atheists.
I've been thinking about right-leaning atheists, and I have a few theories about them. One is that they seem to be there's a certain flavor of libertarian flavor. Republican.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, and as we all know about big L libertarians, having been a libertarian, it all looks really good on paper, and there might be a logical, coherent argument for libertarianism. However, it does not work. The math cannot be applied in real life. It is fantasy. It is a fantasy world big L libertarians live in. Yeah. People do not live like that. It just doesn't work.
Well, and then for one, yeah, I agree. Like it doesn't work, but they don't never stand up to the conservatives on the right. So like they just kind of get swallowed and eaten up and go along. Every once in a while you'll see Rand Paul be a libertarian, but most of the time Rand Paul is stroking Trump's ego. So like even when Trump does very, very things that are not libertarian, Rand Paul is going to be there supporting him.
Right. So big L libertarians make the Rand Paul mistake. They believe that they're pushing their political football towards the big L libertarian goal lines. And what they're doing is just pushing it towards the big F fascism goal lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Right-leaning atheists are just helping to make a theocratic United States of America. And
I agree with that. Like I've always said that, like, whether you like it or not, whether it's your political philosophy or not, you're voting for the evangelical fundamentals. I mean, to have more power.
And I'll also say, so that's one version of what I see as right-leaning atheists. The other one are just white people who, it's easy to be white and a Republican. I don't want to break any new news here.
Yeah,
but it's very easy to be white and a Republican.
That's and the race. I mean, they're a racist atheist, So
there are, it is the white person's default setting in this country to be a Republican, and to say that you're not it publicly, it is something you got to be willing
and it's something you're raised into. Yeah, like it's the party your parents hand you, and a lot of people don't come out of that. And they say as you grow older, you go farther right. That hasn't been my experience.
No,
I think as you grow older and learn more, you're going to go farther left. The problem is the learning.
We have to follow the data. That's the thing. We have to follow the data, and the data seems pretty straightforward that Northern European democratic socialist countries work.
Mm-hmm.
And Russia does not work. It just doesn't work as a real country. It works as a personal fiefdom for Vladimir Putin, but in terms of, is this a long-term strategy? No, because Russia's just going to end up like Venezuela in 50 years.
Putin said he's emptied out their treasuries now. Their military has to work on a crazy low budget, and then and it should show the rest, at least us, that we don't have to have a crazy high budget because they're very effective with the budget that they use when it comes to their military.
Yeah. Well, the problem. I'm sorry, Chris.
I was just going to add on to what Andy said. Sort of take it a little bit to the left, in that they won't be starving in 50 years, Russia, because they're tapping into us now. They're going to, like a tick, feed off of us. I have to once again talk about how they've got our president and the GOP in their back pocket, and they blah, 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 blah. And they are going to start doing the thing at the place with the money. Yes, that's my thinking.
But Putin's and the oligarchs thing is, even if they do have money coming from America or any of the countries they might have corrupted, Putin and the oligarchs are taking it and not putting it into the country. I saw a story, like I think that they've literally emptied out like 90% of Russia's treasury, and put it into all these accounts all over the world.
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
And I'm gonna have to do a video and find that article and provide citation for that, because that's something that really did happen.
Well, I think that using what Andy said about them using it as a personal fiefdom is great. They're using it as a personal fiefdom in order to swell their own personal banks, and using that money against us to set themselves up against us. That's what they've done.
Against the West.
Brilliant.
And we are that representation of the West. We are that mighty power of the West. But their goal has been to destroy the democratic institutions of the West.
Yeah. And, Fi has a good point. Russia isn't a communist anymore. That's not a good point. They are an oligarchy, just like the United States isn't a democracy anymore, technically. And
I'm not even sure if you can say that. They're not well, and they never were communists, for one. Let's get that out of the way. For two, Putin was KGB. So what I think what we have in Russia right now is actually worse than the USSR was. We have, we have the leader of Russia might be one of the most cunning, devious leaders in the history of the world. What Putin has done is insanity. And for anybody to not see it, or for Republicans in this country to be supporting that man and what he's doing, shows that there's a huge issue here in America with what we know and what we don't know.
And again, that is just such a great analogy Andy put on. It's not really a communist state. It's not a country in that sense as much as it is as a personal fiefdom. Yeah. And with all the things that they've got going for them, it's interesting. When did it happen? That's a great question by them. When did it happen? It happened over years. But again, something I want to say again is that as a communist state, even if you want to call Russia a communist state or China a communist state, the problem with those communist states is when the far right wing party of those communist states took over, the conservative-esque. You've got in every society, you got people who are liberals and people who are conservatives. Those are the titles we give them now. But in those communist societies, China and Russia, whenever the right-wing parties took over, it was a power grab. It wasn't to make everybody equal and give everybody equal rights and make sure everybody had education and good schooling and good water.
They're authoritarian states. And you said it yourself, communist state. And true communism, there is no state. There's no state. This world has never seen true communism.
Right. The hat they wear of being a communist state is not a real. It's just a fake.
Well,
like Andy said.
I want to speak to that because the Bolsheviks, because there are different flavors of communism. There's Bolshevism, which was the more radical and violent. Because if anyone, the idea of communism forming in a agrarian state like the early 20th century Russia was an insane idea. The idea is that communism was the natural progression, the evolution of capitalism. So let's say Marx or Engels would have seen it happening in like England or in Germany, but it just happened that you got some old school gangsters, which were the Bolsheviks were. Joseph Stalin was knocking off armored cars in the Caucasus to get money for the Bolshevik party. So these guys were just doing what they had to do. And the idea about doing communism all in one generation or within 5 years was not what the original plan was. But, it was an opportunity and they took it.
Yeah. Hey, Rage, are you is it nearly time for you to bounce?
Yeah. I'm gonna leave, but I was gonna say I think we actually see that here in America. As much as the Red Scare, as much as they try to demonize communism and socialism here, more and more of your newer generations coming from long lines of working families, generations of workers, they're not afraid of socialism anymore, and they're looking at it, and they're looking at the capitalist society and say, "Hey, this hasn't worked for my family, and it's not working for me." So I think that what Andy is saying, that natural progression, you can see that happening here in America.
Yeah,
but I do got to go. I'm going to get out of here, take my daughter to the doctor. You guys have a great rest of the show.
Good luck, man.
You too. Thank you. Talk to you later.
See y'all later.
Okay, so one of the things like with, I'm sorry, now we're down to two. We had this, it was all going to blow up. I think Marx predicted it was going to blow up, and, the working class was going to slaughter. But what happened was they intervened with these things called unions, which diffused the problem for a while.
Right. Well,
you were saying, I'm sorry, go ahead, Andy.
The idea about our system is that it's supposed to be flexible enough so that when problems do arise, it can, our system can incorporate novel elements to it. So despite resistance at first, because every single new idea or new movement's going to get resistance from conservatives. Mm-hmm. So people died to get unions, basically. Right. There were union breakers. People had to go on strike. People died. But eventually, unions were incorporated within the country. Really, these kind of static systems like Bolshevism or authoritarian states are notorious for just being rigid and fragile, actually. They seem strong on the outside, like the Soviet Union. I mentioned that the other day in 1985. Rocky was fighting Drago, that was his name. And the Soviet Union looked really powerful from the outside, but a couple of years later, it just imploded. Same thing's going to happen with the Russian state currently is that these authoritarian governments are fragile and can easily implode when just a little bit of pressure. That's why Putin is so desperate. That's why he's taking these long chances and doing what he's doing in the world.
My notion is, and I don't know how, it's difficult to convey based on my understanding of the way the world works. But I believe that America is corrupted by greed, of course, and by Russia. I wish what I'd like to have happen is something happen in Russia so they'd focus on them and stop corrupting us with their, I want to say fake news, because that's, they're the attack, the cyber attack the United States has been under for at least 4 years, just for 6 to 8 years at least. I'd like to have that stop. And I'd like to have the greed out of American politics. And I'd like to see humanity flourish. Why is that wrong? Well, why is greed rule over that?
The nature of republics ultimately, a casual reading of what happens to republics is that they commit suicide over time. And that what happens is that there is these factions that look after their own interests and realize that they shouldn't be playing nicely with each other and work to undermine the central government. So that's one of the reasons why the Constitution made a system of government so incompetent. When people say that the federal government is incompetent, it's meant to be that way, because if you have the way that the founders thought, or the way that the people who wrote the Constitution thought, if you had a really efficient government, then that means it's just going to go faster to tyranny. It's just going to become tyrannical that much faster.
Well, my deal is I want that Star Trek like utopian future. Everybody's equal. We've cured world hunger. We've talked about it on the show before. I think Jeff Bezos alone, with never suffering anything, the dude could go, Bob, end world hunger, speaking to his assistant, and Bob could go, all right, and start writing the checks, and it takes no more effort on his part than that. And he could end world hunger, and yet he doesn't.
Yeah. The thing is, I really like the movie Departed, right? The Departed, Leonardo DiCaprio, Nicholson, classic movie. And now classic, newish classic. We'll call it a classic movie. But in the very beginning, Jack Nicholson's character is doing this voiceover. And one of the things that sticks with me from that movie is his quote that no one's going to give it to you for free. You got to take what you got to take. You got to take it, basically. And I think that when I speak to nice liberals, nice people who are Democrats, I come off as the not so nice liberal and Democrat, because I say things like that. It's like, you can't just expect to be sitting down on your couch, Netflixing it up and expect the system to work well. That is also another type of fallacy. And that, you gotta, people who want rights have to take those rights. They have to work for those rights, and they have to be aggressive about those rights. People who are gay, the LGBTQ community, we didn't get our rights just by asking nicely.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess apparently we just need more of that, because maybe what we need to do is, we on the left need to get some money, like from those big boys Gates or somebody like that, and hire a right-wing nutbag kind of person, because a lot of them will believe anything, and we'll pay them to believe what we do, and pay them to run our shit the way they run their shit, because their shit seems to work. They're aggressive. They don't take no for an answer. Blah, 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 blah. Again, kind of back to that analogy, or there's a better analogy of let's meet in the middle. So we as liberals step forward, and then the conservatives step back, and then they go, let's meet in the middle. And we step forward, and they step back, and then they go, come on, man, let's meet in the middle. Work with me here. Work with me here. And we go, no, every time I step forward, you step back. And they're like, no, I won't do it. I promise. So we step forward. And what do?
Yes. Well, the other side is always willing to hammer F us at any particular moment, any moment that they can, that they will. And we have to get into that kind of mentality, unfortunately.
And that kind of leads us back to what we were talking about with Miss Amy Barrett.
Oh, Amy Barrett. Yeah.
I have this feeling it doesn't matter. It does not matter what this woman does. If she told Trump behind closed doors, Trump and Mitch McConnell and the other corrupt conservatives, if she said, you know what? When you get me into the Supreme Court, I will give you the presidency. That was it. They're going to do any kind of underhanded, doesn't matter kind of thing to get her in. And really, it's there right now. The underhanded part was whenever they denied Obama's.
Yeah, of course.
That's the part. And to expect them to have honor and scruples is just, look at us stepping forward.
Yep.
And there's just it's going to be a hard way out of this.
There are good organizations who seem to understand, on our side of the fence, on our political side of the fence, there are good groups who are aggressive, who are assertive, and they are worth, of course, our time and our effort. For an example, the Satanic Temple, right? They are trying to push the ball, down towards our end of the line, Extinction Rebellion. There was also another group called NACA, which is the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. I interviewed Bruce Marks, their CEO. And what they do is that they help poor people get houses. They help Black and brown people get who are disadvantaged historically by our system, by our economic system, into houses and build generational wealth. These are just simple, that is just a simple, non-sexy way of making things better for everyone. Because when you have generational wealth, a lot of societal evils are lessened.
Well, we've talked a few times about Extinction Rebellion, and they've piqued my interest. Again, I've been really busy. I haven't been able to do the things and pay attention to it. But I'd like to talk about, since we got time, let's talk about them for a few minutes. I'd like to get one of them to come on the show.
Yep. Well, it's I've been doing a couple of online kind of onboarding stuff. I just met with the people from the Boston chapter yesterday, and it's really interesting because each chapter is independent of other chapters. They all have a central series of principles and tenets that they work with and mutual goals. But how they go about those goals seems to be pretty flexible. There are different working groups within each chapter. So for an example, there is an art kind of pod, or an art group that helps generate art to gather attention for the cause. There's something called regenerative culture, which helps people who are feeling despair in our communities. And there are a lot of people who feel despair over how things are going. They offer some kind of emotional support for people. And I think that's something lacking in a lot of, maybe the atheist movement proper. The idea about a lot of atheists, we seem to be approaching things as if we're just robots and not emotionally at all. So that's one of the facets of Extinction Rebellion that I like. Of course, there's the 3.5% rule too, jumping around a little bit. And the 3.5% rule is actually discovered by Harvard University professor Erica Chenoweth. You can Google that name. And what she says is you only have to activate 3.5% of any general population to create change. Now, 3.5% means getting people out in the streets, or at least active, not just saying that you're part of the movement. But if you are able to get that tipping point of 3.5% of the population out and active, your chances of actually making change and reaching your goals goes up dramatically higher. And her research also shows that nonviolent protest movements are more effective than violence protest movements. And this is what I found. And I know I'm downloading a lot of information because I'm doing my geek thing, my nerd thing right now. But with violent protest movements, you can only have like a small segment of the population, typically young people, healthy people, engage in those kind of activities. However, when you do nonviolent protest movements, you get people who look like me, you get older people, you get much younger people, and it's a larger swath of the population that you can gain support from. So nonviolence, assertiveness, nurturing your own community while still putting it to the other side. And I'm going to my first protest. This is one of those non-arresty kind of protests, because one of the hallmarks of Extinction Rebellion, to gain media awareness, is to get arrested. It's not their only strategy, but part of the strategy, you're going to get a lot more media attention if you get people arrested. If you're blocking traffic, you won't leave, and people will pick you up. The police will pick you up, and there was a move. Yeah. So all of that, man, there's a lot of information.
I just want to interject there. There's this new fad going around on the right-wing side of running over people in the streets who are protesting. So I'm just it's a fad. Apparently they think it's cool. I remember a few years back, this is whenever the students were protesting before the presidency even changed. I think we had students marching out. Maybe it was right afterwards. Anyway, I was talking to my brother. I have brothers.
Yeah.
And he was talking about damn protesters in the street. They ought to get their asses run over. And now they are. And, those kids and the people who are protesting are out there protesting selflessly for rights. They're protesting for the right to not be oppressed. That's what they're protesting. And you want to run them over? Now, wait a second. Here's the question I have. I want this little note, the thing I want to point out. You'll notice that these same people, whenever you see these right-wing douchebags with their guns showing up at courthouses and blocking streets, or showing up at governors' homes with their firearms, you don't see these people talking about how they should be violently put down. And they're usually protesting the fact that other people are having rights that they don't want them to have. They're protesting the right. They want the right to oppress. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're there for. And so, and these things, it makes me angry. And that's how I see it.
Sure. I want to respond to Kelly Sellers in the chat. She points out, as long as they don't block main streets so emergency vehicles get through. This is interesting. Yes. This is just from my conversations with people from Extinction Rebellion. What will happen, at least here in the Boston area, there will be a liaison between the group and the police. And, Extinction Rebellion doesn't pull permits. At least from what I understand, they don't pull permits about we're going to be protesting this day. But there is an active conversation between the group and the police, and it goes something along like, well, this is what we're doing, and this is what our plans are, and so the system understands what's going on. So if people have to be rerouted, then they'll get rerouted. It's not a mystery about where people are going to be marching. Yeah,
well, pardon me. I've wanted to learn more about them, and I've just got these glancing blows.
Well, Chris, what I've discovered as doing this activist thing is that it is difficult to be good at everything. I'm doing some kind of online stand-up bit, I believe, in like a week and a half or so online. Mm-hmm. John Funk asked me to help debate, a couple of Christians on his channel, in which I said, sure. I am someone who says yes. This is the one thing that you learn in entertainment and doing what we do, is that you say yes a lot automatically because, I'm competent, but it is a heavy, and then, getting up to speed on the current environmental disaster. It's a lot. It's a lot of information to process, and it's a lot of time.
Yeah. That's kind of me. I don't really have the time to do all the stuff I want to do. And I want to go do other stuff. So I don't want to sit here researching all this stuff. Yeah. Good morning, Kelly Sellers. Nice to have you with us. I was changing up the show. Everything was working perfectly. And like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, I thought, let me take this little view counter from up here in the top left and drop it down in the bottom left. So I put it down in the bottom left for like one show. And I thought, that doesn't work for me. And I put it back in the top left. And ever since then, it does not work right. So if you guys, there are people watching. Sometimes it'll say 0. So right now it doesn't say anything. I'm sitting here messing with it while we're talking about important stuff. Sorry.
You can mess around with important stuff.
For the last 3 weeks or however long it's been, it's like a crapshoot whether or not it's going to work. Is it going to work on this scene? Is it going to work on this scene? Does it work here?
Well, this is interesting too about how we go about our business, because for me, I am completely technically unaware, and this is funny for people who are watching right now. Chris and Rage had to tell me how to use my freaking microphone correctly. It spent like 5 minutes yesterday. No, Andy, you're not supposed to talk on top of the microphone. You're supposed to talk to the side of the microphone.
The front of the microphone.
I have no idea. So while you're like spending time, and appropriately so, because this is what you're supposed to be doing, you're running your channel, figuring out how to do mechanical stuff. I'm just trying to figure out how to make the best fart joke.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Or masturbation story.
And weird, I gave up masturbation for Jesus stories and other kind of, shtick, basically. This is why I
died.
What's that?
I almost died giving up masturbation. Well, somebody almost died. I don't know who. Yeah. There was lots of stress.
A lot of stress.
So back to the thing though. I have these worries about what's going to happen with our country. I think Rage's solution, the solution he put forward, because I've got this notion about some magical general somewhere is going to convince all the other generals that we need to escort Trump out of the office and there's corruption. They all need to be investigated. And that's all going to play nice. And yay, we'll all be saved and back to a normal, shitty two-party system instead of a one-party fascist system. Of course, we know that's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, like I was saying yesterday, is that the military is not a monolithic structure. So, and people are going to have conversations. There are going to be, and I'm sure that there have been conversations about this particular topic in private, behind closed doors. Guys, or people, men and women in the military just on, doing some golfing or whatever, or just hanging out where there's no one can hear them. And there have been conversations about this.
Off the record,
sure. I have conversation. Where I have a crappy YouTube channel and maybe not so crappy blog, and I have private conversations about stuff. To assume that generals, admirals don't have conversations about major issues facing the country, I think that's a naive. Yeah, they've been talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's. I'm just kind of waiting to see. Really, one of the things is there's been this question asked. All right, this white religious lady is going to get put on the thing, and she's going to start knocking off rights for people. So, well, you know what? If you're not gay, or if you're not lesbian, or if you're not looking to have an abortion, or if you're not this, or if you're not, basically, if you are a Christian hetero normal man or woman or couple, and you're, this isn't going to affect you.
And I think that's
affect you hardly at all.
And I want to talk about that too, because there is this idea amongst nice cul-de-sac white people that this woman or a conservative court isn't really going to affect their life, and that is so wrong. Because the moment that they get rid of the ACA and the fact that these pre-existing conditions are now no longer covered by your private health insurance like they were before. I just want to point that out.
Yeah.
That you could have had a health issue. You had a health issue, and then suddenly you had to switch insurance companies. Then that insurance agency wouldn't have to cover that. And that's what life was like before Obamacare. Having a conservative court puts us, a 6-3 court significantly puts us back to the time that pre-existing conditions were not covered. And because medical bills are the number one reason why people become bankrupt in this country, it doesn't matter how much money you have in that cul-de-sac. If you get cancer, and if your insurance company isn't going to cover, your new insurance company isn't going to cover you for cancer treatment, there goes all your money. It just disappears. Disappears.
And here's a thought, and this is, I don't know how to feel about this. It's a weird. All right, so I don't. Let's just pretend though. I've got $100,000 in the bank.
Yep.
And then I get cancer.
Yeah, well, it's all.
And I give all that $100,000 away to cure or I spend $10,000 and move to Canada.
Yeah. If they'll take you.
Well, now, but you know what I mean? That's, or England, or move to Mexico, or anywhere, any developed country where they have.
You raise a good point, Chris, because you could spend $100,000 on fighting cancer here in the States, and then 5 years later it comes back. And now there goes all your money. Your money's gone. So now what are you going to do?
I just have to say, for those of you who've been riding the train with us since the beginning, a couple of months ago, I had hernia surgery.
Yeah.
They cut me three little spots here, and they put in a little mesh thing. And that surgery was over $50,000. It's unlikely that anybody with the type of cancer we're talking about is going. If you got cancer, $100,000 is probably not going to cover it. Yeah. Your best bet is, if you got $100,000, spend as much of that as you can to get out of this country somehow.
It's an interesting, and I'm sure someone's done a peer-reviewed study on this, on the bang to buck kind of analysis on whether or not it's better for you to get your treatments here in the States, or just to pull up stakes completely and go to another country.
there's bound to be some study done. Phil Lister says here in the chat, he says, baffles me why Americans don't like healthcare systems like what Western Europe has. I want to point out, oddly enough, that the conservatives in Western Europe are actually trying to get rid of your NHS and your one single payer healthcare or whatever government paid. They're trying to get rid of that. And don't let them. Do not let them. If all you need is a bill from me, I'll show you my bill for, it's like $45,000 for carpal tunnel surgery on two hands. A little cut here, a little thing in there, a thing, some stitches, people.
Yeah.
$45,000.
There are, and see, Ski from the chat basically says because of big pharma. And there are many vested interest. Well, money is besides racism, it's the cardinal sin is money in the United States of America, and it has just infected everything in this country: politics, healthcare. These are not new numbers to anyone. That the United States of America, we spend more per capita for healthcare, and yet we get worse results overall. And that is because of the oligarchical system that we live in. If you are rich, you don't care about what happens to middle-class people or to us plebs, basically, because you will be able to pay whatever you need to get healthcare. And if you have the very top level healthcare, this is the best healthcare in the world. But for the rest of us people, we have to suffer. We suffer.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And it's not going to end anytime soon. I don't see that happening. But that's my deal. They say, if you don't like it here, leave. I'm like, well, this is the country I was raised, and I knew and I loved my country. So I'm going to stay, and I want to change it back to the way it was. Let's take that arrogant Chris and put him over here. And then let's take this educated Chris over here and go, you know what? The country we had was actually kind of shitty. It's been shitty for a long time. It's never actually been good when you stop and think. We made a constitution where all men are treated equally while owning slaves. We've been shit from the beginning. So if somebody comes to me and said, you're un-American, you don't love this country. Well, you know what? It really has it's got this idea, this Captain America kind of notion of what it wants to be, and it ain't that, and it's never been that. And I'm not proud of what it is. I'm proud of what it could be, but I'm not proud of what it is, and I'm not proud of where it's been. I was hoping we were going with Obama, and where we were going was where it could be.
Yeah.
And the racist, ugly people, I say racist, corrupt. There's a litany of people who took advantage of the opportunity. It wasn't just one group. It was many groups. Anyway.
I will say in my lifetime, I've seen significant positive change. I remember like 20 years ago, I was passing out leaflets at the Freedom Rally down here in Boston Common, which is basically a pro-marijuana, festival for all intents and purposes, basically saying legalize marijuana. Now here in the state, we have recreational. There's a dispensary right down the street from me. Gay rights. When I was with my boyfriend back in the 80s, the idea about us getting married was like insane. But now it's a thing.
Yeah.
And so these are significant improvements, which just seem to happen. They seem to the casual observer for them to happen just like that, but it takes years of work and grinding work by people like us to get things done. So even though I am negative, some people might say I'm negative, Chris, but no. I do want to say is that hard work does pay off generally, and just the idea. And if that's one of the things I have to say is that you gotta work. You gotta work.
That is true. One of my deals is that if you have a day job and you go to that day job and you work a day, and then you come home and you just watch TV all night, and then you go to bed, you get up and you work a day, you're kind of missing an opportunity there to make your life better. If you work that day and then you come home and you study at night and you change your get a degree, or you start your own business and you work it at night or something until you can put in the hard work in the beginning that makes your life easier later, these kind of things. But yeah, if you're just a person who's going to sit there all day and work or whatever they do, or not even work, and you're just not going to get anywhere. I'm about work.
Yeah. And the thing is that we have to work for a system where average everyday people don't have to do 2 or 3 jobs just to survive, because that's part of the oligarch's plan, is to keep us working so much just to tread water, is that we can't protest and that we can't be active in our own government. So we have to once again work towards taxing the super rich in a realistic way so that we all don't work ourselves to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kelly Sellers says she voted to legalize marijuana. Congrats for me. I'm very pro marijuana. If you're watching the show, you
no way, Chris. I had no idea.
I know. I'm just as surprised as you are.
Right.
You know what, Andy? We've done the hour, man. We managed to get through it. So I guess I want to cut it short. Just a minute or two. We'll do our thing. I have a doctor's appointment. We'll go some doctor and done. And then I got other stuff to do. I'm not. You know what I'm going to do? I want to come up with a topic for Monday's show.
All right.
And then I'm going to not worry about this stuff any more than I have to all weekend.
I imagine you feel like you're somewhat beholden to the news cycle. So something can pop up on Sunday night, and you're like, "Dang, that looks like something it's worth talking about."
That's true. That's true. I can't deny that. I'm just saying I'm not going to look for it. I'm not going to sit here working on the channel and doing this stuff and making all this stuff. I'm gonna shut this show down. Think of let's see, Monday. How can I make a topic that is interesting? And I may wait until Sunday to do that. True enough. But yeah. I'm going to go do other stuff besides atheist liberal nutbaggery.
Very good, Chris. Well,
I hope you get the opportunity to do something besides liberal atheist nutbaggery as well.
Oh yeah. I do my things. Do
you have a stream going on later this afternoon?
I got a stream, not today, but I have one on Sunday. Justin, Empathetic Atheist. He's going to be doing one of the shows I do is Best Advice Ever, where people come on and talk about the best advice they ever received. Mm-hmm. And so it's like this metacognitive kind of journey into who the person is in the world, because not only do you get to hear a great story, but you get to learn something about the person that you may not have known. So it's a pretty cool show. And that's on Sunday, I think around noontime or 11 a.m. or noon.
Awesome. Well, if you're not subscribed to Andy's show, click down there, subscribe to his stuff, do the thing at the place. Guys, if you're not subscribed to me, subscribe. I got stuck at $12.95. It happens. I go up and then it stops, and then go up.
Punctuated equilibrium, my friend. It's punctuated equilibrium.
I was just thinking that. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Thank you all, the damnation, for joining us this morning. Thank you to everybody watching on Facebook. Thank you to the folks who listen on the Daily Atheist Morning Show podcast live. You have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you Monday if I don't take a day off. Thank you for watching the show. A special shout out to my gold level Patreon supporters, Ian Davenport, Cindy Plaza, and tons of mice. Thank you, and have a great day.